So hello everyone, it's your guy, Carl Anthony for President. This morning, we have woken up to some horrible things. We have seen on video that happened in Memphis, Tennessee recently. For those who do not know and may not be aware, recently a young man named Tyree Nichols was savagely attacked by several police officers, all ironically African American. Just like him, and the country's heart is torn in two as we speak. Those officers have been arrested, they have been fired, and they will suffer for what they have done. And I don't think there's any need to go into the emotional side, but of course, my condolences to the family, friends, and loved ones of Mr. Tyree Nichols, as everyone who loved him is going to miss him now until the end of time. So it means something to them, even if it doesn't mean anything to you. But I want to talk about what's going on, because if I want to be president, times like these, I'm going to be asked, how do you feel? What do we do? And where do we go from here? Correct? My job is to lead, give understanding, and give solution. And that's what I'm here for. So let's talk about it. So to start, just to give context, the young man was getting pulled over. He was nervous about getting pulled over. It took a little too long to get pulled over, which then became a chase. The officers, I assume, must have seen this as some excuse to track him down, yank him out the car, and then essentially beat him as though they knew him. It seemed personal, and it's very unusual. They beat this man so bad, he just passed on, kicking him while he's down, macing each other in the excitement of the scrub. It was sickening. And what we saw today was a failure of training, a failure of leadership, a failure of humanity, a failure of so many things that have happened at that point in time. And it's a collapse. And we got to fix these things because, as usual, Joe Biden and the rest have no answers. They have feelings, they have messages, but no answers, no solutions. So we're going to talk about solutions along with this. And again, RIP to Tyree and condolences to his family, for he can never be returned for what has been taken. So let's talk about how we cannot let this happen anymore. And I'm going to talk about this from two different perspectives. Perspective number one, the government and state and political aspects of what we need to do as leaders and as policymakers around this country. Secondarily, we have to talk about it as people. We have to talk about it as Americans and what we can do to assist. Because no problem in this country, no matter how simple the Republicans and Democrats make it seem, is solved by changing one thing. Everything requires a multi-tier approach from anywhere from 4 to 7 things to resolve, and we're going to talk about that now. So let's talk about the government's responsibility. I am glad that they've arrested them, fired them, will prosecute them, and these men will most likely go to jail for a very long time. So let's talk about what we can do going forward as a government. My father was a police officer and is ex-military in the Army. I know these men well. I know the Fraternal Order of Police very well, almost too well. You guys are a little too friendly with each other, but we'll deal with that later. The main issue we need to change now is number one, we need psych evaluations for our officers twice a year. Not because it is assumed that all officers are crazy and dangerous, but you have to think of the things they see every day. Dealing with people every day that's aggressive, dealing with people every day in a negative manner. This builds on your brain after time. We need to evaluate our officers twice a year to make sure their mental state is in order. Secondarily, retraining. I have a program called Fire, Rehire, and Retrain. And what that is a multi-tiered process of cars. We're going to do something about the economy on some of these cars too. I don't like how loud they sound. But what Fire, Hire, and Retrain is a multi-tier approach to fixing police departments around this country. My plan and suggestion and recommendation will be for police officer departments, local, state, sheriff, whatever, around the country, to fire their officers in a rotation. Once a week, you fire a quarter of them, you make them all reapply. They go through full brand new reevaluations. As the new ones get trained, we get a new group into police academy. They come out of police academy, we fire the next quarter of officers, make them reapply, rehire, and then retrain and go back to academy itself. Once they're done with their weeks of academy, we fire the next quarter, and we do this until we clear the department and rehire and recheck, and we put more stringent rules on officers being allowed to be officers in this country, because that is what is really killing us at this time. Next, after fire, rehire, and retrain is done, part of that is several restraints I would like on that process. Number one is hiring local people intentionally. It's time we stop letting people from outside the city police people inside the city. My father grew up in Philadelphia, lived in Philadelphia, raised me in the city limits of Philadelphia, and policed in the city of Philadelphia. No one ever attacked my home, no ever bothered my family. People don't attack cops, okay? So that's number one. Number two is psych evaluations. We have to make sure that these guys are of sound mind. A lot of officers are COs from prison who are also known to attack prisoners in this manner, and they're ex-military whose whole job and purpose in life was to root out the insurgents. We have to make sure their minds are right before we let them police the average tax-paying American who pays their salary. Next that we have to do is a reorganization of partnership. Normally they send two cops out there, both guns blazing, two hammers. We need someone that is a de-escalation set liaison. They should be partnered. One cop should be the hammer. The other cop should be a scalpel, a person that thinks mentally, a person that thinks de-escalation, a person that thinks about psychology, a person that talks to people in a different way and approaches situations in a different way. You fire, rehire, and retrain all officers with these constraints in manner. This will fix police departments. Also, as far as the training is garbage right now. We need to train officers in non-lethal restraint, constraint, protection, and satisfaction efforts. If you watch the video with Tyree, well, for whatever reason, the officer was so excited to stick his gun in that young man's face and threaten him with all kind of things. He never thought to put a pair of handcuffs on that young man once he had his hands. Training. There were 5 to 10 men there. No one said a word and said, hey, let's calm this down, boys. Leadership. The fact that they all sat around and laughed and enjoyed it like it was a good time and a big win. Psych evaluation. These things are needed, and that's how you fix the police department, and that's how the government can actually resolve these issues instead of just saying, we feel bad about it, all is okay. This was a rare incident. So that's the government side of how we fix this issue. Let me tell you about my next plan. So here's the second side of how we can fix this issue that happened to Tyree Nichols and other young men like him, like my friend Tyree too. And this is the personal side. When I was young, my friend Tyree, we were 19. I grew up with him ever since elementary school. We all went to college, and he went to one of our HBCUs in North Carolina. He got in an argument between his own girlfriend and his roommate got so upset, the roommate had a weapon, a handgun, in the dorm room, shot Tyree, and killed that young man right in the dorm room. So when I heard what happened to Mr. Nichols and I heard the name Tyree, instantly, I was like, oh, 28 years later, And still, we're losing Tyrese. Now, I already talked about what we're going to do from a political, policy, and structural perspective, but now I need to talk about what we need to do as Americans and African Americans, especially minorities and those who are in Memphis right now. Guys, Memphis is a 64 and change percent African American city, 65% black. The police department of Memphis is 13% black. The rest of the police department is actually 67% white. How, in a city that is 65% black, is the police department 67% white? And I'm gonna tell you why. It's not their hiring practices. They're not rejecting African Americans for being black. We don't apply for the job. We become soldiers, we go into the military, we leave the state, we move out of state, we leave our home, and then we leave it to other people to police. I need African Americans in Memphis, Tennessee. Flood that police department. Don't go into the military, apply to be a cop in your city. Don't become a hoodlum. Don't hustle and thug. Become a cop in your city. If 65% of that police department was black, those rogue African-American men who are obviously really capitulating to possibly the 67% that are not African-American. So maybe that's why they had such, what seemed like hatred for Tyree. Very interesting, right? We can stop that, but I need you guys to become cops for me. I need you guys to be there. I need you guys to go get that job. That's a good paying job. Has benefits, pays you a decent amount of wages. And you all would be protecting your friends and your family. That's what I need from you to help me. Now, separately, I have another story. If you have not noticed, I'm a very large, beautiful black man. I'm 6'4". I'm from Philadelphia. I have been pulled over in my car by police officers at least 100 times in my life. I used to get pulled over twice a month, no matter what state. I used to like to speed, I'm not gonna lie. Pulled over all the time by officers. Yeah, I was that guy right there. Whoop, whoop, pull him over. But I tell you guys, every time I ever got pulled over, I immediately pulled over, I capitulated. I was even so much to even tell them a joke, because I knew if I didn't do anything wrong, there's no reason for me to be scared. There's no reason for me to be worried. And I'm gonna tell you guys, as president and as an honest, real man, 30 of those 100 times, I was 100% wrong. But because I was nice, I was patient, and I was respectful, officers of the law let me go home. They didn't take me to jail. They didn't ruin my life. They didn't attack me. So don't help them hurt you. A lot of times, because we're scared, we're worried, we make erratic moves, and we think that's making things better. I will tell you, due to the poor training, cops are like wild animals and dogs. If they see you running, they want to run too. Please, when you see the lights go on, pull over. Don't hold court in the street. Don't have long conversations about what you did and what you... If you didn't do anything, pull over, give them your stuff, make a couple jokes, takes you 25 minutes, and get out of there and go home alive. Go home alive. Don't give them an excuse to get carried away and hurt you. And that is how we fix this issue. And guys, once I said, this is multi-tier stuff. Rehire, retrain all the officers nationwide. 2, psych evaluations a year for every officer to make sure their mind is not getting damaged by what's going on in the street. 3, switch up and make sure one of the parts has great conflict resolution and de-escalation skills. 4, retrain them in more non-lethal tactics for training and getting people under control without people dying. And lastly, I need you to become cops. You hear me? I need you to become cops. So I love you guys. And that's Carl Anthony for president, the average man with the master plan. As always, I tell you, Joe Biden has no answers for you. Donald Trump has no answers for you. I do. Remember that when you go to those voting booths. The man with the master plan. Love you guys. One.